Hello everyone, this is Jim Nix with NomadicPursuits.com, and in this video we'll be talking about the many facets of details. One of the great things in Aurora HDR 2018 is that you have a few different ways that you can adjust and enhance the details in a photo, and we're going to cover those now. Now the very first and the most obvious one is in the HDR basic panel, and that's the HDR Enhance slider. It essentially brings up visible detail and texture in the photo. So just like all these sliders, the more you drag it and the further to the right that you go, the greater the visible detail is going to be in the photo. So you can see I've gone all the way to 100 in this case, so to get from that to that. Now one of the great things about HDR Enhance is that it brings up the visible details, but it does a really good job of not creating artifacts and halos and things like that in the sky. So it's a wonderful tool. I use it on every image, and that's why that's option number one. Now the second option to talk about is the HDR Structure slider. Now there's a few things in here to be aware of, but Structure essentially adjusts the overall image detail and clarity. And so it may sound similar to the HDR Enhanced tool that we talked about, but in reality it applies it differently. So let me give you an example. You just take the amount slider, and I'm going to go pretty far to the right to exaggerate the look. But as you get farther and farther to the right, you can see that it gets really highly exaggerated and does so very quickly. So this is often used to create sort of that classic detailed HDR look. So if that's to your liking, you can drag the slider like that. And if you wanted to boost it, you have a boost slider, which can make it even more intense. Now, I wouldn't normally boost that much detail or use it that intensely, but it is an option for you if that's the look you're going for. But also there's a softness slider included in this filter. And so as you go to the left, you'll kind of soften up that detail, and you'll remove the softness from the detail. In other words, you'll make a more detailed image if you go to the left, and to the right it will soften it up and create a bit more detailed look to the photo. Now Microstructure works the same, however it works on the smaller details. So I'm going to go ahead and drag that pretty far to the right, and I remove these other adjustments so you can see right now all that we have is HDR Microstructure. Let me show you the before and the after. It's a very visible difference, and it really brings up these small little details, and frankly it's a really great slider to have on hand because you also have the softness here, so you can drag that softness over, and that really helps you not to overdo it effectively. And so you can see with just Microstructure we went from that to that. So I think a nice detailed image, but it's not completely overdone. And again, all of these adjustments are seasoned to taste, so just use them to the extent that you're comfortable with and however you'd like to use them in each photo. Now the last option we're going to talk about is the HDR Details Boost slider, and here you can see it's divided between small, medium, large. Small are the finer details, medium is the medium-sized objects, and large is really setting the sharpness of global contours of objects in the photo. Now the protection slider helps protect and ensure that the bright areas of the photo don't become over-processed as you're dragging the other sliders. And the masking controls zones of where the detail is being amplified. So if you go to the left, you're going to get a more detailed image because fewer zones are going to be masked. In other words, fewer zones of detail amplification are going to be protected. Right? Whereas if you go to the right, you're going to have a less detailed image because of the number of zones is reduced. And so let me show you this in action. I'll just drag all of these all the way to the right just to get a really crazy over-the-top detailed image. And so again, that's kind of the old kind of school, sort of a heavy over-processed type HDR. Brings up a ton of detail all over the image. Now, if you add protection, you can see that the sky has now just gotten remarkably softer. Let me show you the before. There it is. And the after. If you look at the clouds in particular, they're very smooth and soft. In fact, the sky looks gorgeous, I think, despite all the crazy heavy detail here in the foreground of the photo. Now, if I drag the masking, as I said, if I go to the left, the number of zones of detail amplification are increased, so you're going to get a more detailed image. But if I go all the way to the right, you'll watch the image, it softens up considerably because the number of zones of detail amplification is reduced, so you end up with a less detailed image. And so what I really recommend here, you can see even though I have small, medium, large all the way to the right with protection and the masking also all the way to the right, I actually have a nice image. There's the original and here's the final. You actually don't see a big difference, and that's because I've got all this protection and masking in place. So, you can experiment, and that's what I recommend that you do. All of these, as I said, are seasoned to taste. Move the sliders around, see what works for you. And if you like something in one part of the photo but not in another, don't forget you can always grab a brush and just paint it into a specific part of the photo. And that's part of the flexibility and the power of Aurora HDR 2018. And that's some of the many facets of the detail sliders that you can use on your images in Aurora. I hope that it helped. Thanks for watching, folks, and we'll see you next time.